Hi, this is Cora Stack again. Dr. Stack, I want to talk today about something that I feel is not discussed enough, and it's about conflicts of interest. So, the title of this video is called Conflict of Interest, Cascade Dynamics and the Silence Around the 2025 Presidential Nomination Process. In Ireland, Article 12 of the Constitution distributes presidential nomination power between two institutional repositories. Now, it has taken me a long time to come to this concept of the distribution of power, and interestingly enough, I've been looking at a case law, Crotty versus on Taoiseach, and I couldn't believe it was about the same concept because I hadn't read the details of that. I knew it, I had to, but I couldn't believe it was about the same thing because I'd written a paper about the distribution of power, and I just said, oh, it's been discussed before, and it was like a match, because I hadn't read. So I couldn't believe it was about the distribution of power in the Constitution. So I was shocked really that I had come to this independently of, that judgment. So in Ireland, Article 12 of the Constitution, this is how I look at it now. This is my perspective after months and months and months of refinement, distributes presidential nomination power between two institutional repositories. One is members of the Oireachtas and the councils of not fewer than 4 administrative city or county councils. So this is not accidental, it's a structural safeguard. It diffuses power or control over access to the presidential ballot across both national and local democratic institutions. What happened in 2025? On the 3rd of September 2025, the presidential order formally activated the election. So that's the start of the presidential order. That's a very important date. From that moment, both nomination pathways were live constitutional mechanisms operating within a defined nomination window. It's a very, very narrow window. As 3 days later, on the 6th of December, a directive issued by allegedly Mr. Simon Harris, issued advising or instructing, rather than advising, it was instructing councillors, Fine Gael councillors, not to nominate through the council pathway. Now, I had a correspondence on the 5th from a pretty powerful person on the 5th, and this came on the 6th, so that this is very, very concerning for me. What followed? Only 3 of 31 local authorities nominated any candidate. The constitutional 4 council threshold was not met. The council pathway did not operate. So this is what people are saying have views about the county councils, but this is what I feel that could explain the huge shift between 2018 and the huge change from 20 councils that nominated to 3 in between those 2 cycles. I'm calling it the structural conflict of interest. This is where the constitution issue becomes very serious. Once an election is activated, councillors are not merely political actors, they are participants in a live constitutional repository of nomination power. That sounds sort of big language now, but that's the way I see it now. It's like a distribution of power, and it took me months and months and months to see it this way, or to view it this way. And then I came across Crotty and I said, oh my God, I can't believe it. So when a categorical directive advises, it wasn't advised, it was instructed, as I understand it, non-exercise of that repository during the operative window, a structural tension arises. We're not going to allege that there was corruption or illegality or coercion. That's too strong. That's way too strong. But what I'm saying is the conflict of interest. It's like putting somebody into a corner, putting them into a corner that there wouldn't be an otherwise. So I'm calling this a structural conflict of interest. On one side, the person, the county councillor, has political alignments, party coordination, strategic position. On the other side, you have the other side of the mind, we'll say, of the person. You have a constitutionally assigned institutional function, a live activation window, a threshold requiring distributive participations. These are the 2 kind of influencers, we'll say on the mind of they all have to weigh up these two sides of the equation, if you like. By conflict of interest, in this case, I mean institutional tension, not personal wrongdoing. So I want to put up against a wall, but being pushed into a direction that